All right, good morning, everybody. Welcome back to transportation. So we'll see how rusty I got over the summer months and the fall. For those of us that are new, um, actually, let's do this first. Why don't we just start by introducing ourselves to the rest of the committee? See, I told you I was rusty. Can we please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? Okay, thank you for that, Representative Hill. Like I said, we'll introduce ourselves briefly as a committee, who you are, where you're from, and believe it or not, I've heard that, and I heard this, that this is one of the only committees that everybody who's on it wanted it. So if you want to make a statement on why you like transportation, that'd be more than fine too. We'll start with Representative Pataro.
Good morning, everyone.
I'm very loud, and sometimes I forget that. Good morning, everybody. My name is Seth Miller. I'm a first-term representative representing Dover, New Hampshire, the Floterial there, wards 1, 2, 3, 5, and 6. I am I am one of the people who requested this. I'm excited mostly about aerospace transportation stuff, but I know we don't do a ton of that here, but it's the closest I get. And also, all bits of transportation are interesting to me. So that's who I am.
Hi, I'm Charlie St. Clair. I'm from Laconia, District 5. Uh, As somebody that uses the roads, I'm very interested in it, and I hear an awful lot from my constituents about transportation issues, so I'm thrilled to be back here, and this is the start of my fourth term.
Thank you, sir.
Good morning, Charlie Foote from Derry, Rockingham 13, my second term, and I did request this transportation committee. Everyone grew fond on me last year, both of the committee and our organization heads and support staff, and I'm looking forward to this year.
Good morning. I'm Representative Greg Hill. This is I don't know, I've been here since 2010. I also chair legislative administration, so this is my second committee. I probably broke the rule that I'm the one that didn't request this committee, I think. But I'm only here because Charlie St. Clair is here and I follow him wherever I go. Thank you.
My name's Representative Ted Gorski. I represent Bedford. This is my third term. It's kind of like The Godfather. Every time I try to get out, they suck me back in. And
Take the cannolis.
Take the cannolis. And I've been asked to be vice chair again. I look forward to serving with the chairman and working with the committee.
My name is Tom Welsh. I live in Hooksett. I represent Hooksett and Dunbarton. It goes by quick, but this is my seventh term. I have been on transportation the whole time. I served 2 terms as vice chair, and this is my third term as chair. Even though transportation isn't my career, if it's got wheels, flies, or floats, I find it fascinating, and that's why I've always sought this committee.
I'm Representative Dan Bayou. I'm from Amherst, and this is my third term, and my second term as the deputy ranking member. I come from a trucking background, and I have a private pilot's license, and I've been boating for a few decades now, and so this was kind of an interesting committee to me three terms ago, but now I come back because it's the best committee in the House. And, we have a lot of fun here and look forward to a great year.
I'm Henry Geisen, freshman representative, Goffstown, New Hampshire, Hillsborough 29th District. I requested transportation because of a passion for it. I've driven truck. When I was in the military, I had the expert wheeled and tracked operators and maintenance badge, and I'm also a professional motorcycle rider and trainer here in the state of New Hampshire, and a motorcycle collector. So I'm very passionate about roads, road safety, and road freedoms.
Hi, I'm Representative Drew Fox. I represent Keene, New Hampshire, and this is my third term on the Transportation Committee. I asked for it again because after 2 terms, I finally feel like I'm getting my feet wet and I know what the heck's going on. And given that, it's also a feel-good committee. We're all about the safety and of our constituents and our people, and that's a good thing.
I'm Representative Eric Johnson. I represent Lee, Madbury, and Dover Ward 4. This is going to be my first full term after having been elected in a special election in March. They put me on transportation last term because I didn't know any better, and they did, and I decided to trust their wisdom again.
Hi, I'm Representative Plamondon from Nashua, Hillsborough District 3. This is my second term. Prior to this, I was a 12-year alderman for the city of Nashua, chairman of infrastructure committee, lands, buildings, and so on. So it's a good fit for here. I also used to drive commercial, have a motorcycle license. I've developed in my years a close relationship with like the National Police, Hudson Police, State Police, Department of Safety, and I think this is the perfect committee. And I also work for Hillsborough County Sheriff's Department. So that's 2 cents about me.
All right, thank you very much. Just for our new members, we are missing a few people today. Representative Crawford, Carol Crawford from, I believe, Moulton Borough is our clerk. She couldn't attend. Our ranking member, Representative Sykes from Lebanon, also could not attend today. New member, Representative Guyson. Hamblin. That's right. I spoke with him as well. He had a long time ago commitment that he had scheduled, couldn't make it, but says he's watching live stream. We'll see. And Representative Coker is also couldn't make it today. So I, as usual, have a checklist of stuff that we can go over for committee orientation specifically. But I'm going to waive that for now because we have all our department heads that we generally deal with. And I figured we could just have them go through their presentations first, and at the end, then we'll go through some of the stuff that's more technical and just committee related. So without any specific order, other than talking to them and checking their availability, I will start and ask the Department of Motor Vehicles, Department of Safety to get us started. And again, for our new members, these I've called in today the people that are usually here. So you've got Department of Motor Vehicles, Department of Safety. Well, Department of Safety is the umbrella. Department of Motor Vehicles, Marine Patrol, Fish and Game. Believe it or not, we do have Fish and Game here quite a bit, and Department of Transportation. So those are the common heavy hitters in transportation. So all yours. Welcome.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. I'm Steve Lavoie, the Assistant Commissioner at the Department of Safety. I want to thank you for giving us this opportunity today to come in and talk a little bit about the department. We are a large state agency. We have 7 divisions. If you turn to page 2 of the first presentation here, it's our org chart that lists all 7 of our divisions. Most of these won't be interfacing with transportation, but just in general to get a sense of how broad the safety mission is, I want to take a minute to speak about each very briefly. So the Division of State Police, who will be speaking today in more detail, they deliver law enforcement services statewide. They operate 7 troop stations, the Marine Patrol facility in Guilford. They also operate the Forensic Lab and the Criminal Records Unit and the Permits and Licensing Unit. Homeland Security and Emergency Management, they coordinate the state's response to all emergencies, both natural and man-made. They also operate the state's Emergency Operations Center whenever that is activated. The Division of Fire Safety is the Office of the State Fire Marshal. Their mission is to prevent deaths, injury, and property loss by promoting safe fire, building, and hazardous materials environments. And the division investigates all fires, building collapses, and carbon monoxide releases which result in a death. The Division of Administration provides internal services to all the divisions within the department. They're also the area that collects the state's road toll. That's the gas tax, not the tolls on the turnpike system. But that's a significant revenue collection point for the highway fund. The Division of Emergency Services and Communications operates our statewide 911 system. And they have 2 public safety answering points, one located in Concord, one in Laconia. And those are both geo-redundant and fully operational at all times. So if one system has a disruption, the other is able to take calls without any disruption to the public. The Division of Motor Vehicles, who's here today to go into more detail, they operate 14 locations statewide. They're ensuring that all of our drivers, vehicles, and service providers are properly credentialed, and they focused on providing exceptional and efficient customer service in the areas of licensing and all motor vehicle related matters. And then last but not least, the Division of Fire Standards and Training and Emergency Medical Services. They provide accessible, high-quality training for firefighters and EMS providers across the state. All providers, all municipal, nonprofit, private, career, on-call, volunteer, and they operate 2 training facilities. We have one here in Concord and another one in Bethlehem to service the North Country. Our approach with the legislature is really one that's collaborative. We view our role with your pending legislation to provide information and data so that you can make the best decision possible. We won't always agree. There'll be times when we disagree, but we're committed to doing so respectfully and continue to provide data to support any position that we do take in front of the committee. Before I turn it over to State Police and DMV, I know this is a policy-based committee, but I think it is important to recognize the Highway Fund as a key revenue source to support both DOT and the Department of Safety. If you turn to page 3, this is an excerpt from the state constitution that defines the Highway Fund and its uses, which is both for the construction and maintenance of public highways, and then also for the supervision of traffic thereon. There's also mention of the cost of collections in here. In simple terms, these are the costs or appropriations required to fund the DMV and the road toll bureau to collect those revenues. So those come off the top before the revenues are deposited into the highway fund for use by those restricted purposes. Page 4 is a summary of the revenue collections at the Department of Safety related to the highway fund. So as you can see, about half of the revenue collected is from road toll and also the new electric vehicle surcharge, which is to make up for some of the lost road toll revenues. The other half are primarily DMV related fees that are collected through the Division of Motor Vehicles. And then lastly, on page 5, again, we mentioned that the DOT and the Department of Safety both are benefit from the highway fund. That's primarily where the source of revenues to support operations come from. But there's also benefit to the locals. And so 12% of all highway fund revenues are distributed to locals for road repair and maintenance through the DOT Betterment Fund. One of the challenges that we have, which I think is important just to consider as you're working through the session, we've had a structural deficit in the highway fund for at least the last 3 biennium, which has required a transfer of general funds into the highway fund to maintain the levels necessary to support the legislative requirements for DOT and safety. Obviously, there's been some discussions about concerns with general funds this session, and so it's uncertain if there'll be an ability to do something like that, but that'll be worked out through the budget folks. But I just bring that up because even though this is a policy-based committee, you're going to see fiscal notes attached to the legislation. We have a role in developing those estimates, and I think it's important to have that context of what it means when there's a reduction or increase or any change in highway fund revenues and the potential impacts those have to safety, DOT, and then also the locals. With that really concludes my opening remarks today. Thank you again for the opportunity. And Mr. Chair, if you're okay, I'd like to turn it over to State Police and start digging into the part that you're really here to hear.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good morning, sir. My name is Captain Matt Amatucci with State Police, and I'm going to provide an overview of the State Police. It's a very diverse division, so I'm going to give kind of a 30,000-foot overview of the Division of State Police. So when fully staffed, the Division of State Police is comprised of 362 sworn state troopers, another 40 state law enforcement officers, which is your Marine Patrol, State Office Complex Police Force over at the State Hospital, and another 300 civilian support staff. The structure of the State Police is broken up into 3 bureaus. You have the Operations Bureau, the Investigative Service Bureau, and the Justice Information Bureau. So the Operations Bureau is comprised of 83% of our sworn staff. The majority of our sworn staff is on the Operations Bureau. It is overseen by the Bureau Commander, which is currently Major Brendan Davey. There are 3 field area captains that oversee the different areas throughout the state. And then there's a 4th captain that is the Quality Assurance and Compliance Commander that oversees policy compliance and recruitment and training. The Operations Bureau is broken up into field troops. As stated previously, we have 7 troops. Troop A is on the seacoast. That is Stratford and Rockingham County. Troop B is Hillsborough, and a portion of Rockingham County, lower 93, falls under Troop B. Troop C is the western part of the state, Cheshire and Sullivan County. You have Merrimack County is Troop B, which is where our headquarters is also located. Troop E is Carroll County, Belknap County, and then Coos and Grafton make up Troop F, which is about 38% of the geographical area of the state. So it's very rural, but it takes up a very large area of this state. And then you have Troop G, which is over the entire state. And I do want to speak specifically about Troop G, as you'll probably be hearing from several of them throughout this session. And I brought several of them with me here today just to introduce them. We have Captain Steve Sloper, who's the Field Area Commander over Troop G. Staff Sergeant Seth Atherton, he's the Assistant Troop Commander. We have the Supervisor of the Automotive Equipment Inspectors, the AEIs, Ken Chaput. So throughout this session, you'll probably be hearing testimony from them and others from Troop G as it relates to transportation. So Troop G is broken up into 3 different sections. Field enforcement. So field enforcement unit is made up of sworn troopers and civilian automotive equipment inspectors, the AEIs, who are tasked with enforcing the laws and rules governing the operation of the 1,614 dealerships and the 1,984 inspection stations throughout the state. In 2024, the field enforcement unit completed 350 dealer audits, 449 inspection station audits, conducted over 1,000 mechanic certification tests, opened 131 new automotive dealers and 144 new inspection stations. And then in May of last year, 2024, a centralized complaint process was implemented, making it easier for consumers to seek assistance with questions or concerns related to their vehicle inspections. A dedicated email and phone number was created specifically for consumer issues and clearly printed on the vehicle inspection report provided to each consumer at the time of their inspection. Each complaint is collected, tracked, and disseminated for further investigation when appropriate. Troop G is also oversees the commercial motor vehicle inspections. So it enforces all federal motor carrier safety rules and regulations and state laws. It investigates all crashes involving commercial motor vehicles. And then there's the investigations, anything fraud related that is submitted to either the Division of Motor Vehicles or the state is forwarded to the Troop G investigations for investigation. So this includes anything from fraudulent documents, residency fraud, registration fraud, odometer fraud, VIN cloning, and the theft by deception related to sales and distribution of motor vehicles. The next slide is just an overview of kind of statistically what we have seen from the Division of State Police over the last 3 years. So looking at data from 2022 through 2024, as you'll see, our calls for service have gone up over 20% over the last 2 years. So in 2022, we had approximately 136,000 calls for service. Last year, over 171,000 calls for service. Our motor vehicle stops have increased drastically. Everyone's very well aware of that we're down as far as personnel. Currently have about a 17% vacancy rate as it relates to our sworn personnel. We sit at 61 vacancies as of today. Our high a little over a year ago was 80 vacancies. So even with the number of vacancies that we have, 2 years ago, with a little over 70,000 motor vehicle stops. Last year, we had just under 100,000 motor vehicle stops. Our DWIs arrests continue to increase. It's gone up over 21% over the last 2 years, from a little over 900 to 1,147 last year. And our other arrests are up 33%. So again, even though we are down staff-wise, our numbers continue to increase. Marine Patrol falls under the Operations Bureau. Captain Dunleavy will speak to that when I'm done with this presentation here. Special Services also falls under the Operations Bureau. Our Special Services are comprised of many units. Many of those units are part-time units. They're collateral responsibilities. They're in addition to the primary functions of our road troopers and other troopers that we have. So, for example, we have a K-9 unit. There's a full-time commander, that's Sergeant Gary Ingham, and then a full-time trainer, Trooper First Class Kevin Devlin. But we also have 25 K-9 teams. Crisis Negotiation Unit, the drill team. We oversee the DARE program for New England. That's overseen by Sergeant Richard Peralt, who also oversees our sex offender registry. Drug recognition experts, these are all part-time additional responsibilities of our troopers. Currently have 24 located throughout the state. Our bomb squad is comprised of 4 full-time members and 4 part-time members. We do have a motorcycle unit that's primarily used now for PR events. They used to be on patrol, but years ago we went away from that. So when you do see the motorcycles in the summer, that's primarily for PR events that they're going to, not operating in a patrol capacity. Our Special Enforcement Unit, this is our aviation unit, our drone unit. All the dignitaries that come in, they're responsible for ensuring their safety. They develop the operational plans and ensure that any dignitaries that come into the state are safe, and that plan is put into place. Our Special Events Response Team, this is another additional responsibility that we put on our personnel. Last year, with several protests and the increased number of protests that we've seen in this state, we've increased the numbers that in this particular unit. We went from about 30 that were on the Special Events Response Team to 60 that we currently have now. So they receive additional training. So when there are incidents at UNH or Dartmouth and those types of things, we do have the personnel that we will either pull off the road or call in to be able to deal with those situations. And then we have our SWAT team is also comprised of 25 part-time members. Our Special Enforcement Unit, last year they flew 102 flights of traffic enforcement missions, resulting in over 3,700 motor vehicle stops. And as you'll see, over 1,100, almost 1,200 of those motor vehicle stops were vehicles traveling in excess of 90 miles an hour, and 119 of them were over 100 miles an hour. And this is just the aviation unit that is seeing this. This doesn't encompass all of the Division of State Police. And then they flew another 102 missions with a helicopter, typically for search and rescue type missions. K-9 unit responded to over 500 calls for service last year. And again, we have 25 K9 teams throughout the state. This does not include our 4 or 5 bomb dogs that we have. Bomb squad responded to 555 calls for service, and those range from suspicious packages to dignitary sweeps. When dignitaries come in, they're responsible for those large events. They'll go in and sweep the property prior to. The Justice Information Bureau, that's overseen by the Bureau Commander, who is Major Chad Lavoie. It's broken up into 3 areas as well. Communication, which is our dispatch center. Again, they received over 171,000 calls for service last year. Every call is filtered through our communications unit. Records information, which is our sex offender registry, criminal records, and license and permits. And then the J1 program, which is the NCIC program, and the digital evidence unit. And the third bureau is the Investigative Service Bureau, which is overseen by the Bureau Commander, Major Bill Bright. It is comprised of 4 main areas, which is our narcotics investigation unit, our major crime unit, our special investigations unit, and our terrorism and intelligence unit. We also have a polygraph unit, which falls under the umbrella of investigative services. That is also a part-time unit. So we have 6 part-time polygraph examiners for criminal exams and all of our pre-employment exams. The next few slides just have some statistics that I thought was interesting. You might find interesting from our different investigative service bureaus. So our narcotics investigation unit is comprised of both our undercovers and our mobile enforcement team. The 2 collectively seized over $96,000 in U.S. currency. They made over 270 arrests, drug-related, and they seized almost 100 kilos of illicit drugs. The total value is just under $10 million that they were able to seize in both currency and illegal drugs and weapons. Our major crime unit responded to 78 investigations last year. These range from our homicides to officer-involved shootings, death investigations, and other investigations such as Amber Alerts, Silver Alerts. The missing person clearinghouse falls under the major crime umbrella. Our cold case unit, family service section, prison liaison, and the DOJ Attorney General's YDC task force also falls under the major crime umbrella. Our forensic laboratory is the sole provider of traditional forensic laboratory services in New Hampshire. The forensic laboratory is separated into 5 sections. It's toxicology, evidence control, pattern evidence, drug chemistry, and forensic biology. In 2024, the laboratory received just under 20,000 items of evidence and received over 12,000 requests for analysis. Of those 12,000, almost 50%, 48% of those requests were related to toxicology for blood and alcohol for DUI investigations. State Police also has the executive security and state house security and the peer unit. Those fall under the director's office. They don't fall under one of our 3 bureaus, but they report directly to the director's office. So that is the Division of State Police, kind of in a nutshell, if you will. I too wanted to thank you for all of your support. I know that we constantly hear that the roads are out of control. I can assure you that we continue to hire very good, competent people. As you can see, we ask a lot of our people. They're given a lot of additional responsibilities, and we refuse to lower our standards. You don't deserve that. The public doesn't deserve that. So what you see representing the Division of State Police, I assure you, is the best caliber of law enforcement that we can find. So with that said, if you know of anybody who would like to join our ranks, we are currently hiring. Our next test is March 1st, and we'd love to have them. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much. And And I know these are presentations, but I still thought I'd see a hand go up or two, but that's fair enough, quickly. Again, we'll have plenty of opportunities to get questions answered, but I know there's probably a couple that are fresh, and so long as they're brief, we can move along. Go ahead.
555 bomb squad services. Did you guys have any blow in place or disarmaments that are not classified?
Not that I'm aware of.
I just have one, the very simple one.
Yes, sir.
No, motorcycles don't do patrols anymore.
No,
I didn't realize that.
since the late 2000s,
Yeah.
I think we went away. It might have been the 2012. There were a couple of close calls, from my understanding, is why we kind of went away from patrol.
Yep.
It's dangerous riding a motorcycle in general when you're on patrol and traveling at high speeds, trying to, catch up to offenders. I'm sure that decision was looking at the pros and cons, the risks, and trying to mitigate those risks. And what are we trying to accomplish? We have a ton of success with the helicopter. With the plane, our aviation unit. As you can see from some of the data that we've seen.
Yep, thanks. Do you know if other states are doing that as well, as far as eliminating the motorcycle patrol?
That I'm not sure. I know Maine State Police has done away completely. They don't have any motorcycles,
Right.
not even for PR events, let alone patrol. I'm not sure. I know Massachusetts does. I don't know if they're on patrol or not, but they have a pretty good motorcycle unit.
Thank you. If you have never seen the state police motorcycles on an exhibition, I strongly recommend you go see. It's amazing. These guys are incredible. Representative London.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Couple questions. One is on revenue. Do we, or these new toll booths that we have that are just drive through and you're supposed to be going 65, when I go through, I see cars whizzing 80 plus. Do we capture those plates? Are we able to, or do we have a number of vehicles that are absconding without paying the toll? Anything we can capture there?
So that's through Easy Pass. It's a completely separate from what the state police deals with. I know that they do capture, obviously, the vehicles that are going through. Any violators, they capture the plate, they capture the picture. They do capture speeds, but we don't have access to that without either a subpoena or a search warrant.
Really? That's interesting. My other question is, and my last one I should say is, I did have another question if I might, Mr.
All right,
Chair.
go ahead, Representative London. Follow up.
Even if we were fully staffed with the growth that New Hampshire is currently experiencing, and particularly on our highways, it's very difficult for the manpower, even fully staffed, to fully control the situation on particularly our primary arterial roads, 95, the F.E. Everett, 93. We have the one plane. Is there anything that you might recommend that we could help out with as far as tools or technology that would assist, particularly where we're down manpower?
Nothing in particular comes to mind. I will say is since really over the last 10 years, we've become very specialized, even more specialized than we were in the past. And what we've had to do with many of these positions is steal positions from patrol and put them into specialized areas because there's a need. And what that has done is it's pulled some of our patrol troopers, their positions into other areas. We have great need across the board. We really are the backstop of New Hampshire law enforcement. So we were able to demonstrate that there is a need for these specialized units, but that comes at a cost. And that cost is, in some aspects, our patrol. License plate readers are down in Massachusetts. Investigatively, we will use those when we're trying to track suspects. If there's amber alerts or silver alerts, we'll contact other states that have those license plate readers that are at choke points in certain areas of the highways, which is very beneficial to know if that individual is heading in that area. Obviously, we tap into cell phones and try to track them that way. But the more ways that we're able to track people that are either dangerous wanted subjects or missing and endangered subjects, the better. So that is one thing that this state currently doesn't have that other states do have, that is a good investigative tool.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Welcome, sir.
A lot of information in there. And again, there'll be plenty of time in the future to ask all the questions. Who do we have next? A celebrity in transportation. Is it still Captain Dunleavy or is it?
Retired.
Okay, but you still hold on to your position, correct, or your title?
Yes.
Okay, Captain Dunleavy, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, honorable members of the committee. My name is Tim Dunleavy, and I come to you today representing the Marine Patrol, where I retired a couple of years ago after 34 years in uniform. And I'm fortunate enough that the department has retained me as a program specialist. And one of my major duties, particularly this time of year, is to serve as a legislative liaison for the Marine Patrol. First, I'll say that I always welcome the opportunity to come before this committee. I think it's fair to say that we've enjoyed a very good working relationship, not only with individual members of the committee, but the committee as a whole, in achieving everyone's best form of a bill. I'll be somewhat brief this morning, just highlighting the overall duties of the Marine Patrol. Some are very obvious, some may come as a surprise to you. But most importantly, I think it's important to point out our major responsibility is ensuring that every individual that comes to New Hampshire or lives in New Hampshire and enjoys our waterways and our environment, our great natural resources, can enjoy the specific activity that they wish to engage in. And oftentimes, those activities are in conflict with the neighbor's sense of enjoyable activities. Whether it be a person on a personal watercraft, a fisherman around a swimmer's dock, a power boater, a sailboater, the Mount Washington, or perhaps a boat race in Wolfboro Bay. Those are all things that Marine Patrol in some way or another will touch over the year. By statute, we are required to perform and provide three important services. First and most obvious is to enforce the criminal and boating laws on all the public waters of the state. And the public waters, the great ponds of the state, are those that are 10 acres or more in size. We'll investigate boat accidents, criminal complaints, and any freshwater drowning, whether it be boat related or not. If it occurs on a public water in the state, Marine Patrol is responsible by statute to investigate the circumstances of that drowning. Oftentimes that carries over with cooperation from local and county departments, and more specifically, the Fish and Game Department, who oversees the search and rescue, particularly the dive team. Marine Patrol and Fish and Game are oftentimes on the same scene when, under the unfortunate circumstance of someone who's missing or drowned, and a recovery is required. The second statutory responsibility is to provide an education opportunity for the public when it comes to operating power boats. We are in New Hampshire, if you operate a boat over 25 horsepower, you're required to have taken a course, provide proof of a boating education course if you're 16 years of age or older. We offer those opportunities both in the classroom and in online. The online option does require an in-person final proctored exam. Last year, we certified a little over 10,000 people in their operation of powerboats on our waters. The third responsibility is to maintain our aids to navigation on inland waters. For those of you who are boaters or have been out on the water, it's no mystery that New Hampshire is not called the Granite State for nothing. We have vast stretches of open water that look like they're beautiful opportunities to navigate, but in the middle will be some of the ugliest lake bottom you've ever seen in the form of boulders and granite ledge and so on. And those areas, those hazards need to be marked. Our unit is responsible for maintaining just a little under 3,000 aids to navigation in the form of buoys, flashing navigation lights, danger warning signs,
and believe it or not, bridge navigation lights. We actually maintain the lights on 6 bridges around the state for navigating purposes. We are comprised in the uniform side of the unit with 1 state police lieutenant who is the unit commander, 4 Marine Patrol sergeants, and 3 full-time year-round Marine Patrol officers. And this season, we had 21 seasonal Marine Patrol officers. Not unlike the rest of law enforcement in this state, we are struggling to recruit and to fill our vacancies. I can tell you routinely from the 80s, 90s into the early 2000s, the seasonal force with Marine Patrol numbered typically between 65 and 85 seasonal officers. We're down to 21. So I'll echo what Captain Amatucci said. If you know of anybody that's interested, I can tell you that driving a patrol boat on Lake Winnipesaukee is better than an air-conditioned cruiser on 93. So for what that's worth.
Always.
Not always. That's true. Last week, if you were assigned to the Seacoast, the cruiser heated on 93 was more appealing. Our civilian ranks are comprised of 11 full-time people, and this is where it may surprise you, some of the duties that Marine Patrol is responsible for. We have 3 mechanics, full-time year-round, who are not only instrumental in manufacturing and maintaining those buoys and aids to navigation that I just mentioned. They also maintain 66 different vessels, patrol vessels, that range in length from 10 feet, that being personal watercraft, up to 2 40-foot offshore patrol boats for our Homeland Security Patrol on the Seacoast. And with that, there's 135 outboard engines, inboard engines, and a fewer amount of trailers. For those smaller lakes and ponds in the state, our officers trailer the patrol boat and will hit 5, 6, 7 different bodies of water in a patrol day. Those boats obviously are mobile and those trailers need maintenance. We have 4 clerks who are responsible for processing paperwork related to the moorings permit. We have 7 lakes in the state that require a permit if you have a mooring. We have water event permits that are comprised of slalom course permits, swim line permits, fishing tournaments, fireworks shows, powerboat races, poker runs, and long distance swims are some of the fundraising events that we permit as well. We also have a clerk that's sole responsibility is overseeing our commercial boat program. The commercial boat program requires a lot of logistics, particularly in the spring, when we inspect over 600 commercial boats between ice out, usually in April, and by the 4th of July, when everybody wants to be up and running by then at the latest. What's a commercial boat? It's every fishing charter. It's every kids camp ski boat. It's the Mount Washington. It's the marine construction barge that might be working on your breakwater or your dock. Those are all, by definition, commercial boats required to be inspected on an annual basis, and the operators of those vessels need to be licensed. And we test over 600 people a year on average who are seeking to get their commercial license. The majority of them are camp counselors for all our kids' camps around the state, many of whom are international. So to get those licenses, they need to be in state first. So there's a significant push in a 2-month window in late May and June to achieve all of those inspections and testings. Interestingly, when it comes to our mechanics, I will say that Mercury Marine identifies the Marine Patrol as a warranty center. So from a budget perspective, because we are a warranty center and our mechanics are factory trained, any work on engines that are still under warranty are recognized by the factory. And instead of a warranty rate that a marina may get, they exchange at a prorated amount to our parts accounts. So we share a great working relationship with industry when it comes to our mechanics. The final thing I want to touch on is our budget resources. And I think it's important to point out to you folks, because you hear from your constituents as taxpayers, Marine Patrol's budget is has 2 primary sources. The first one is the Navigation Safety Fund, which is a dedicated revolving fund, and its revenues are generated from boat registrations, boating education revenues and fees, as well as mooring permits. Our other water event permits are free of charge to the public. The second main source is that of the Recreational Boating Safety Grant issued by the United States Coast Guard. Those funds are divvied up among the 50 states, those revenues of which are excise tax on the manufacturers of life jackets and fishing equipment that I know Fish and Game and other outdoor law enforcement and agencies benefit from around the country. Lastly, I'll just mention our Homeland Security Patrol. Obviously, since 2001, our world changed, and we have one Marine Patrol full-time sergeant and 2 full-time Marine Patrol officers assigned to our Homeland Security Patrol on the seacoast. That is a year-round patrol involved in not only the escorts of valuable assets coming and going from the Port of Portsmouth, but also ensuring security of those vessels when they're offloading product, perhaps in Newington. We also have perimeter security responsibilities for Seabrook, the tank farms that you'll see along the river, the Piscataqua River in Portsmouth and Newington, and those power generating plants along that stretch of river as well as bridge security. The 95 bridge between New Hampshire and Maine, Sarah Long and Memorial bridges are important infrastructure to our seacoast. So that is the 30,000 foot view. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have, and we'll go from there.
Thank you very much, sir. Just one lighthearted question so we can keep moving on. Did you get any phone calls about the second sticker this year?
1 or 2.
Thank you again.
Thank you,
very
folks,
much.
for your time.
And I believe next up, Director Marasco. Good morning.
Morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Thank you so much for this opportunity for all of us to come over and talk to you this morning about the things that we do and how we're going to support you through the session and beyond. My name is John Marasco. I'm the director of the DMV. I'm here this morning with some exceptional leaders from our leadership team. I'm proud to work with them each and every day, and on behalf of approximately 240 full and part-time DMV employees, we all are going to give you 150% each and every day to do the best we can for you and for all the residents of the state. I know we're up against it on the time front, so I'll be brief. You've got the slide presentation here. The commissioner spoke about the 14 locations throughout the state. Generally speaking, we do about 400,000 in-person transactions at our counters around the state, and that's a lot of volume. If you come to any DMV really on a Monday and a Friday, you're going to see that the lobbies are jam-packed. We have amazing people that represent the organization that do that public-facing work, and they have to know a lot. They have to abide by the Driver Privacy Act 26014, all rules, laws, policies, federal requirements for certain transactions, and they do a magnificent job. And one of the things that they do, and I want to thank Captain Amatucci and Captain Sloper and retired Lieutenant Jay O'Leary and the state police for a lot of the training they provide to DMV employees on fraud. And I just had a meeting with Sergeant Atherton from the state police yesterday morning, and he highlighted the fact that so many documents are being caught by DMV employees, whether it's a fraudulent social security card, passport, utility bill with the same address, things that you really have to have a keen eye for that our employees are picking up and catching and bringing to the attention of law enforcement. And that speaks to their commitment and what they do each and every day. The motto at the DMV is we work for you. Every day we're working to get to yes. We're going to follow the rules. We're going to follow the laws, policies. We're going to do everything by the numbers. But where we can go the extra mile and help customers, all of you, we're going to do it. I'll give you one example. I got a text from a state representative yesterday on somebody who hadn't received their license in the mail. I suspect it could be a mailing issue because it had been so long. But our new driver license administrator, Scott Milligan, sent the text to Scott. Scott's already last night reached out to the constituent, already has a plan to get a license in her hand to include potentially driving out to Milford to hand deliver it. You do so much for us. It's a two-way street. We've got a couple of bills that are coming through this body this session that are key to the DMV. They're more than just cleanup. They should have been in place some time ago, but they're going to validate the receipt that you get when you renew your license. That receipt that you print out at home, we need that in law. That's got to be a legal document. And I want to thank Representative Vayu for sponsoring that bill, and a bill that when you turn 21 on the weekend and you renew online, you're kind of penalized because it's Saturday or Sunday, which means you're going to get that vertical license in the mail. And we get a lot of phone calls. We get about over 500,000 phone calls a year. A lot of those phone calls can be broken down into specific categories. A lot of times it's processed like that, where people call and say, hey, I renewed online like you told me to, but I got a vertical license showing that I'm still a youth operator. Well, now you got to come into the DMV and you got to pay the extra and you got to get the horizontal license. So thanks to Representative Vayu's bill, we're going to be in a position where you can renew on a Saturday or Sunday, have a grace period. You'll get a temporary, you'll get your hard copy after you turn 21, and it will be in the horizontal format. So I get that a lot when I'm out and about. When I got this position almost 3 years ago, that's a major question people have, and that's a great change. But without all of you and the support, we don't make those changes. So we're scanning all the time. We're looking for how we could do the best internally and externally. We work with stakeholders. I see Dan Bennett is here. Bob Scully was here. Joe Scully, his son. We work with NHADA, NHMTA. We work with so many organizations throughout the state to make sure that we're doing the best we can. The leadership team, I'm going to leave it to them to give you an overview of their bureaus and introduce themselves. They have incredible backgrounds. Like I said, it's an honor to be with them each and every day. Projects I'll just touch on briefly. We have one going on right now. It's probably, it's right there at the very top of major projects. It's a new license. And we're actually phasing in a new vendor currently. And we're going to be producing through this new vendor by the end of the month. That's the goal. And so we've got a hybrid in some of our locations of the current vendor. Well, actually, they're both current, but one vendor and the vendor that's being onboarded as well. And we're working through so many things on that front. It's going well, but there's a lot to it. And so our project manager for that is Ashley Gray. She's an administrator. She's back holding down the fort on that. But you'll see Ashley here from time to time testifying, and she does a wonderful job. Jen O'Leary is here with us today as the administrator overseeing the Title Bureau. And e-Title, e-Lien is a project. I want to thank Assistant Commissioner Steve Lavoie. All the things that we do at the DMV, the wins that we put on the board, the things that we're able to do there, we could not do it without Commissioner Quinn, Commissioner Edwards, and Commissioner Lavoie, who's really part of the fabric of what we do each and every day to include these projects. And another big one that's going on is we're looking to, with approval, to make a move to a new location in Raymond, which would take us out of that co-located facility in Epping, which is a busy one and it's really tight and it's a bit outdated. So we're hoping to potentially be in a new location in Raymond off of 101, maybe in the spring, early summer. So those are some things that we're looking forward to. You can see on page 10, our statistics speak for themselves. Like I said, the call volume. We have a handful of people that answer calls throughout the division. They do a great job. AC Lavoie has worked with our assistant director, Jen Bailey, who's seated behind me, on upgrading our phone system. We hear that from people, our municipal agents throughout the state. Maybe, oh, that's on the other side of the wall. I was going to say, is that door open? But we get asked a lot about our phone system. And what we're doing now is we're upgrading to a modern system. And I want to thank the Commissioner's Office and Jen for making that happen for us. So that'll help us address the calls better. We talked about the walk-ins. You can see the online transactions that we have over to the right. Titles, right around 400,000 titles issued every year. That's a huge number. Every single one of those title applications and titles has to be manually inspected. That's a lot. That's a lot to ask of a small group of people. And if you look at the turnaround times on the numbers, it's fantastic what they're able to pull off each and every day. But e-Title and e-Lien is going to help with that as well. A little over 1 million active driver licenses throughout the state. We issue about anywhere from 330 to 360,000 licenses a year. I want to let you know that's done by 2 full-timers and a part-timer that do that on site. and we couldn't ask for better employees than those three. They take so much pride in their work, and they're good for producing about anywhere from 1,800 to 2,200 licenses a day, and they too have to be manually inspected before they're put into the mailer and they go out to our constituents around the state. 1.4 million registrations. DMV rule sets. We have a lot of rules at the DMV. We work with JailCar a lot, and I'm proud to say over the last 3 years, we've made a lot of changes to rules and law to make sure that we're providing the best service that we can. We're going through all of our forms within the DMV. That's been an ongoing project. We actually have a part-time employee that we've hired who is spearheading that, and we're making great progress to make sure that we're always in compliance with JailCar. So how do you deliver that great service? You do it with a great culture. And I want to recognize all of our supervisors throughout the organization for providing for an incredible retention rate, incredible. Harvesting that knowledge, making sure that people know that they're valued, and people come to work every day with a mindset of, we work for you and we want to do the best we can for you. But it starts with employee safety and security. I've made that a top priority over my last 3 years. It's paying off for our employees who come to work and feel safe. And although you can never prevent everything, you certainly can take measures to prevent a lot. And that's what we're doing, whether it's a program for, glass at our counters. You'll see on slide 15, we have a security monitor program that we started. We call them safety monitors now. Eyes and ears. Greet people when they come through the door. Lower the temperature. I was down in Manchester a couple weeks ago. Larry, 30 years military. He's one of our security or safety monitors there. Everybody that was leaving that had already gone up to the counter came over to him and said, "Thank you, Larry. Hey, thanks for the help with the form. Hey, have a great day, Larry." It creates a different vibe and environment, and it lets our employees do the job that they have to do times the 400,000. But it sets the tone when people come in to have, an orderly environment for that 400,000. So we're about to hire our 8th safety monitor. So they're in just about every location around the state. But we invest in our employees, whether it's Columbus State Training, where we do emergency preparedness. I want to thank the State Police, Colonel Mark Hall, for 2 years in a row allowing the State Police SWAT team to come in and train all of our employees on active shooter on the counters where they work, to include some simunition rounds that make noise when they go off so that people react and know what to do. To include Justin Cutting from the New Hampshire Fire Academy for Stop the Bleed training, for CPR training, AED usage, Narcan training, and now we have these devices in every location. When you deal with 400,000 people, you're probably going to be put in a position, unfortunately, where you need to save a life. Our employees around the state can do that, and I'm proud to see that advancement over the last 3 years. And the list goes on and on with the some of the safety measures that we've taken and things that we're doing. I do want to talk about, just to give you some insight into how we think. I think that's very important. We're always trying to up our game. We're always trying to put wins on the board. So things that might seem subtle to people, I think are very important. Like when you send out over 1 million pieces of correspondence around the state every year, we want it to read right. We want the tone to be right. We want it to be grammatically correct. We want it to have the information that you're going to need in there to be successful. So again, you don't have to be one of the 500,000 phone calls that we get. So little things like when you send out a renewal notice, making sure people know what that entails, what they have to do. And until hopefully Representative Vayu's bill passes, if you're turning 21 on a weekend, what to expect and measures you can take to get the horizontal license. But we've updated a lot of letters that go out, and we've put a certain spirit into them that I get emails back from the public that say, I learned something from that. I could see the difference in the tone. We appreciate it. They feel like, as they should, we work for them. License production time. I want to go back to that. When I first came into the position, we were producing licenses 35, 40 days. In some cases, we're producing licenses same day or next day. And all the credit goes to the 2 full-time employees, Bailey and Alex, and Dennis, our part-timer, who make that happen. How do we up our game? Commitment. It's a noisy room. There are no windows. They're behind a cage. They're producing licenses all day long. But they come in and they love it because they know we value them. And that's the difference. We go from 35 days down to same day. The other thing we do is we work with our partners, like at the warehouse. Well, what are we doing? We're producing the licenses, and then they're going to the warehouse, and then they're going to a third-party vendor to look at the zip codes, and then they're getting mailed by U.S. Postal Service. Why do we need to do the zip code thing? Can we take that out? the warehouse, said, absolutely, let's do that. And by the way, let's mail these things first class mail. So a state senator the other day had pulled me aside and said, John, I've got a question for you. Actually, it was a state representative who had said to me when we were issuing the license plates, how is it that I came in and got my license on the 27th and I've already got it? I had it within a short period of time. It's the employees that are doing that. So, but we're looking at ways to support what they do. CDL expansion, how can we make things better for industry? Well, we've got, 2 that are in the books, a new range up in Lebanon, one in Epping, and there's going to be a premier facility up in Bethlehem that will open in the near future. And we also have a mobile vehicle. We have a mobile DMV, and we're going to get the outfitted technology in there, which means we can go around the state and we can do license transactions in places like Seabrook, where we don't have a DMV. Or we get calls for people who are immobile. Well, you know what? In certain instances, we'll be able to go to your driveway and we'll do a transaction for you, or a nursing home, or a military establishment. There are things that we can do. And by the way, if you see the vehicle on the side of it at the top, it says just that, we work for you. Little things that I just want to touch on that make a difference customer experience, but give you our mindset. If you go to the Manchester DMV, I get emails on that frequently. I came in here 8 years ago and it was a disaster. I come in here now and it's beautiful. Well, that's because we work with Brady Sullivan. The floors are all polished. There's new paint. Our logo is on a branding wall. New carpeting in the back. The glass. We're fully staffed. And by the way, I want to thank Brady Sullivan for what could be anywhere from $50,000 to $75,000 worth of a enclosure for a stairwell out the back to make sure our employees are safe, both with a key card and from the elements and falling down the stairs. The Concord DMV, if you drive by, you'll see it's all brand new out in front. We got logos out there that are lit up at night, but that's part of the customer experience and first impressions, and we want to make sure that we're doing the best we can there. So with that, I want to leave you with this, our commitment to legislation. From the minute I came into this position, after a full career with the state police, I understand how important your jobs are. I want to thank each and every one of you for putting your name on a ballot and for representing all of us each and every day for virtually no money and a lot of time, and we know it. So we want to make it as easy for you as we can. We want to be available to you. So just know behind the scenes, here's how we do it. We track legislation well in advance. I've already got the whole list right here. I think, Jen, you said we've answered about maybe 30 or 40? 45 LSRs. It's this leadership team behind you that does that work with review from the director's office before it goes out to make sure we get it right. From there, we look at which bills might be the most impactful to the agency, and that's where we work with Commissioner Lavoie. And we talk about them, and we figure out, is there a position? Do we take one? Do we not take one? Do we offer informational testimony, written testimony? Do we observe? What are we doing on each and every one of these bills? That's a lot of time. I have my regular meeting with AC Lavoie later today. We talk about legislation all the time to get it right for you. The other thing is we have an internal form that all the administrators, when there is a bill that comes up, that we fill out. Who is it reviewed by? What's the title of the bill? Who are the sponsors? What's the status of it? What committee is it in? What's our position if we have one? What's the recommended action? Does it impact your bureau? Does it require programming changes technology-wise? Form changes, website changes, rule changes, operation changes, budgetary changes, any other changes? But this is what we fill out, and we keep it. And we follow the bill through the session in both bodies. And then we hold on to it afterwards because some of these bills come back. But I just want you to know that that's the effort that we put into legislation. Anybody behind you, you may see this leadership team behind this microphone much more than you see me during the session, unless you call me and say, John, I want you there. These are your subject matter experts. They know their jobs. I trust them to come over here and give testimony. I'll be here to support them. Some bills I will weigh in on because they're of that magnitude that I want to make sure that from the commissioner's office as well, we get a little bit of emphasis on it. But these folks do a wonderful job, and they communicate and they keep track of this information. And whatever you need from us, you just let us know. But with that, I just wanted to give you kind of that quick overview, and I'd like to turn it over, if I could, to for everybody here to introduce themselves and talk about their specialty. Maybe Jen, Assistant Director.
Good morning. My name is Jennifer Bailey. I'm the Assistant Director of the Division of Motor Vehicles. I've been with the agency in my 19th year. In this role, I've been about 6 months, but I have worked in every other area of the DMV, so I'm knowledgeable in just about every transaction, rule, law that we have. So my main focus now is I oversee the budget, contracts, leases, projects, all of that. But again, I am down here often. I was the last sessions to testify on anything that is needed. So that's it.
Hi, I'm Liz Mashad. I'm the administrator of the Registration Bureau. So I oversee boat registrations, vehicle registrations, the International Registration Plan, the IRP for portion trucks, also the issuing of dealership and inspection station licensing. I've been with the DMV for almost a year. I came from corrections in California, so this is my first time working in state government like this. So, thank you.
Good morning. For those that are new here, my name is Jennifer O'Leary. I'm the Title Bureau Administrator. I have 22 years of service with the Division of Motor Vehicles with a main focus on the vehicle side of the house. I met with a lot of you regarding different regulations in the past. I'm excited about this legislative season and to see where these new projects take us. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Brandy Cassida. I'm the administrator of the Bureau of Financial Responsibility. Our bureau touches just about everything that impacts your motor vehicle record. I've been in the position for a little over a year and with the DMV for 10 and a half years. Thank you.
Hello, good morning. My name is Scott Milligan. I am the driver's licensing administrator. I've been with the DMV for a month right now. I previously worked for U.S. Department of State. I was sort of immigration and visa processing, as well as I was a congressional post liaison, as well as immigrant liaison.
Hello, I'm Kathy O'Neill. I'm the administrator of operations, so I oversee all 14 locations throughout the state. I am over the safety monitors as well, so I'm really excited about this legislative year. Thank you.
No Lieutenant O'Leary?
We could have him up here as an honorary guest. We sure could. Yeah, big part of everything. And our Deputy Director, Janet Bouchard, who ordinarily would be here, her father just passed away within the last few days, and she's taking care of her family. So I want to thank you all for listening to all of us, and happy to take any questions.
First of all, I'd like to thank all of you very, very much. It was a fantastic presentation. I do see one question, if you Representative Hill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And in an effort to eliminate one of our bills, can you give us a quick update on the blue envelope program?
Yes, I can. Representative Hill, I want to thank you for bringing that to my attention. I'd never heard of that program until you did, and I've learned more about it. I want to thank Administrator Ashley Gray for putting together a nice memo and doing some research on it, finding out what other states are doing around the country. The Autism Blue Envelope program is a great program. It's an opportunity for those who are dealing with autism, should they encounter a first responder, to be able to hand an envelope to that first responder. On the exterior, it has some bullets of what that first responder can do to have a positive interaction and de-escalate, make sure that it's good communication back and forth. You can put documents in there when you hand the envelope over as well. So a couple things have gone on with that. I don't think we need a bill on it, Representative, and the reason being is, in speaking with the Commissioner's office as well, it's something that we can do. So I've had the opportunity to speak with Director Skippa at New Hampshire Police Standards and Training. He thinks it's an excellent idea. We've pledged to work together to come up with a program to figure out, both on the training front, how we can do that for first responders, get the information out to them, and work with the Office of Highway Safety. I've talked to John Clegg, the program manager there, for production. I don't think the envelopes will cost much. It's probably, quite frankly, something if we can't get the federal funding for, we would look at our own budget for, because it's just good customer service. So that's a program that we're going to put into motion and set up a meeting and start working together on. But it's a great initiative. I want to thank you for bringing that forward. You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you again. Next, how about Captain Eastman from Fish and Game? I think I see one other, then we'll probably take a short break for a minute while I track down future presentations. Good morning, Captain. How are you?
Good morning, Chairman Walsh. Good morning, everyone. My name is Michael Eastman. I am a captain with the New Hampshire Fish and Game Law Enforcement Division. Fish and Game Law Enforcement is in charge of enforcing all hunting, fishing, trapping, other wildlife rules and laws. We are also in charge of enforcement for OHRV and snowmobiles throughout the state. We also are charged with search and rescue within the woodlands of the state, as well as dive. Our dive team makes recoveries throughout the state and also assists with evidence recovery. My role at Fish and Game is the OHRV, the Off-Highway Recreation Vehicle Coordinator. I oversee enforcement, safety, and registrations. So where you would see me in your committee is obviously the one of the things would be the electric vehicles. If certainly on the roadway there, certainly evolving every day. But in the off-highway realm, they seem to be expanding exponentially. Where a 14-year-old can come up with $3,500 to buy a electric dirt bike, he's certainly more fiscally responsible than I was at 14. So that's certainly one thing that you may see. Some of the personal, electric vehicle legislation that's coming about, and certainly on the off-highway side of things, it's a lot different than on highway. Right now, anything with pedals would really fall into that has an electric assist would fall into the mountain bike realm. But for all you motorcycle enthusiasts, anything that has pegs really and is operated off highway would be an OHRV. We also oversee obviously any accidents that occur off highway. We cover about 60 to 65 accidents a year. And last year, unfortunately, 4 of the snowmobile accidents were fatals. And I think that really comes, we have to look at the safety side of things and how we can evolve in that realm. Also, I think on the snowmobile side of things, accidents are becoming a little different because certainly we don't have the snow cover that we used to have, and people are falling onto icy trails, and now we're seeing more substantial injuries due to that as well. So really, where you will see me is in those areas. Our officers, we have about 42 officers that cover throughout the state. And they can cover any one of those things that I described. Certainly, we, as like all law enforcement, are seeing a deficit in hiring. So like the captain said, they have a 17% deficit in hiring. We have a 13% deficit in hiring. So, very similar. It takes a very unique individual who wants to hike up and assist a hiker in a day like today on Lafayette Ridge, and then carry them out or make sure they get into a helicopter and assisted off the mountain. So therefore, thank you for having me today. I have handed out our OHRV digest to each of you with my card if you have any questions. One thing that is coming up here very shortly is our OHRV registration is going online to make it a little easier for our constituents. And they will be able to go on and do that and receive registration so that they can operate within our state. So I thank you all for having me today. Thank you, Chairman Walsh.
Thank you again, as always. I see a couple hands. You know what? I don't see the Department of Transportation here yet, so unless they're in the hallway. They are, okay. Briefly, please.
Quick question, do you have any more of the pamphlets? There weren't enough.
I'm sorry, I brought 12, so
Okay.
I will make sure you get one.
All right, thank you.
Representative London?
Mr. Chair, very briefly, are we still doing Northwoods Law? What a great PR.
So we are forever in basically in syndication at this point, but we are currently in talks. The same production company, Angle Entertainment, is looking to do something more, and as we evolve now, I guess, or evolve, maybe not the right word, everything's going to YouTube, so there will be some sort of a YouTube program coming up, I think, shortly.
Thanks again, Captain. We'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Okay, you wanna? Yeah, I'll take credit for spearheading that, by the way, and I believe most of the room's got it. I see if you can just. All right, I'm gonna call up. I was gonna call up Dan Bennett next, just because he said he was gonna be brief, but thank you, Brad. Hold on, Dan, we're gonna go to the regular schedule. We'll go to Department of Transportation first. Welcome, Commissioner.
I didn't know if you were waiting for, okay.
Ready to go.
Very good. Well, thank you all for letting us give you an overview of the Department of Transportation. My name is Bill Cass. I'm the commissioner. With me today, I have several folks, and you may see their faces at the committee during the session. So on my far right, your far left is Dave Rodriguez. He's the assistant commissioner and chief engineer. Next to him is Andre Briere. He's our deputy commissioner. Directly behind me is Steve Labonte. He is our legislative liaison, so he would generally be the point of contact for the committee with the department. And Lee Baronis, who's the administrator of the Bureau of Traffic, tend to be several of the bills that come before the committee would be Lee. You'd see his face testifying or answering questions. So I didn't know what the committee's favor with. We can jump into questions. I have a very brief PowerPoint, some slides to just walk you through some facts and figures about the DOT as a general overview, and then get into some whatever questions the committee has. So the very first slide is our organizational structure. So there are 3 commissioners, and we're all here today. Underneath the commissioners, we have 5. The department has 5 divisions, and each division has a director. So, and direct reports out of the commissioner's office is also our Office of Safety and our Office of Asset Management and Performance Strategy. And the various bureaus underneath those divisions are laid out there. So primarily, the assistant commissioner, chief engineer, kind of oversees the operational side of the house. That's our operations and project development. The deputy commissioner oversees the non-highway and bridge transportation assets, aeronautics, rail, and transit, as well as finance, policy, and administration. On the second slide, or third slide, if you count the front sheet, is our mission and purpose. So our mission is to always strive for transportation excellence and enhance the quality of life in New Hampshire. And our purpose is really delivering quality transportation projects and services in a reliable, safe, and efficient manner. So some key facts about the DOT to just give you a sense of the size of our agency on slide. I should number the slides, but key facts about DOT on slide 3 is we have about 1,650 employees, permanent positions. Right now, we are currently running about a 25% vacancy, which means that every, 1 in every 4 of our permanent positions are vacant as we strive to fill vacancies. We maintain 2160 state bridges. There are about 1,700 municipal bridges, and the state of New Hampshire, our bridge inspection folks, we inspect every bridge every 2 years, every bridge in the state. Slide 4, there are some other just key facts about the department, some numbers. We maintain about 4,600 centerline miles of state roadways. We try to pave about 500 centerline miles every year to keep up with the overall maintenance. We maintain 100,000 signs, 96 million feet of striping. We try to stripe every road at least once a year. There are 25 publicly accessible airports, 11 local public transit systems that we help administer federal funding to support those. On the next slide, slide 5, I guess, with a funding summary is a pie chart of our FY24 actual budget expenditures. So the Department of Transportation's budget was about $700 million. We typically divide our budget into 2 parts. The larger piece is the municipal aid and construction. That's a lot of the federal funds, a lot of the other state funds that flow to municipalities that flow through the department. On the other half of the budget is what we're kind of involved in now with the budget process, is the department's operating budget. And we are made up of multiple funding sources, as highlighted there at the bottom: highway funds, federal funds, turnpike funds, other funds, which is generally agency income. And we have a very small, less than 1% of our budget draw on the highway fund that mainly supports the Division of Aeronautics, Rail, and Transit. And the larger portion there, the green half of that pie, the municipal aid and construction budget, a lot of that is the federal funds. A lot of that is the federal transportation dollars that we administer as part of our program. The operating side of the budget is primarily supported by the state highway fund. So that's a very broad breakdown of our budget. The next slide, I'll just step through the various divisions and tell you what they are and what they do. So our Division of Aeronautics, Rail, and Transit, comprised of 3 bureaus overseeing aeronautics and the 25 open to the public airports. We are a block grant state, so we directly administer the FAA funds that come to the state. And there are 12 federally funded airports. 3 of those commercial airports, Lebanon, Pease, Manchester, they work directly with FAA. All of the other airports, the federal funds flow through the department to administer those. And there are 13 other open to the public airports that do not receive federal funds. And we take in about $500,000 in revenues from aviation registration fees. On the rail side, there are 6 active operating rail agreements within the state: 4 freight, 2 tourist excursion rails. There are about 150 miles of active, used, state-owned railroads, and about 300 miles of abandoned railroads, which tend to be more focused with recreational use and rail trails. On the public transit side, there are 11 local public transit systems that we administer funds to and help support, as well as intercity commuter service. And the one bus service that the department directly administers is the Boston Express, running commuter buses down the 93 corridor to Boston. Our administration division on the following slide consists of the executive office, our public information office, and a lot of that is focused on the management strategy and the executive leadership of the agency. Our division of finance oversees all funding and budget formulation, financial operations, contract management, all of the financial applications that come along with the department. We administer, typically around close to $350 million a year of federal funds in our transportation program. So all of the bill paying and all of the accounts receivable and accounts payable through that, run through that, as well as all of the auditing functions of both the highway fund portion of the agency, the federal program, as well as the turnpike program. And the other administrative division is policy and administration, which encompasses all of our Human Resources Bureau and a lot of the federal compliance office and activities that we do for occupational health and safety, policy formation, as well as employee training. And with that vacancy rate I mentioned at the beginning, we have put a lot of focus on employee training and employee retention and recruitment as we try to rebuild and maintain our workforce. The next division is the project development division. That consists of all of the planning, engineering support, right-of-way acquisitions, construction management of our transportation program. So those are all the construction projects that you see out there. My director of project development likes to talk about it as we are the largest engineering and construction firm in the state, administering and developing the state's transportation program. And a big part of that program becomes the biennial update of the 10-year transportation improvement plan. That's our governing document. That's our legislative authority to work on any of the projects. We don't work on any other projects unless they're authorized through the 10-year transportation improvement plan. The bulk of our transportation program comes from the Federal Highway Administration. We administer about $225 million of federal transportation funds a year, and that's mostly going to the engineering, design, and the construction of those projects. So for broad perspective, in FY24, we advertised about 84 new construction projects. We provided continuing oversight and construction of 85 construction projects with a combined active construction total of about $800 million. So that was the value of construction that we were overseeing going on at any one time. In FY24, we advertised about $331 million of construction work. And that's all comes out of the division of project development. Probably the division you're most familiar with or see along the roads and highways, the orange trucks, the folks plowing the roads, the folks maintaining the roads, that's under the maintenance and operations division. So we have a dedicated statewide workforce. When I mentioned the 1,651 permanent positions, we are located all over the state. We have about 84 different patrol sections and facilities to maintain the state highway system across the state. We, under highway maintenance, that's divided into 6 regional maintenance districts that provide the administrative oversight of those maintenance activities. The big part of our focus is, particularly this time of year, is the winter maintenance operations, keeping the roads plowed and cleared and responding to storms. Another big part in the past several years has been the response to emergency events. There has not been a summer and even a winter when we haven't had some flood, some natural disaster, roadway washouts, and it's this dedicated statewide workforce that are the front lines in responding to those, getting the roads put back together, getting traffic moving again. So highway maintenance and those are the guys in the orange trucks that you see around. They're the forefront of the highway maintenance activities, but overall operations activities are also supported by the Bureau of Traffic that do all of the line striping, set the speed limits, do the signs, maintain the signals. We have a Bureau of Bridge Maintenance that does the routine maintenance of state bridges, divided into 12 bridge construction crews. We have a Mechanical Services Bureau that maintains the state vehicle fleet and have the main garage here in Concord, but also 6 satellite facilities that support each of the districts and the fleet equipment in each of those facilities, in each of those districts. Many people don't know as well that the Department of Transportation maintains the state's fuel distribution system. So we have 87 fuel sites, maintains, fueling our vehicles, but also all of the municipalities can refuel at our sites, state police, everybody, and we are the strategic fuel reserve for the state as well. And lastly, we have a Transportation Systems Management and Operation Center. It's co-located with the Department of Safety, State Police Dispatch, in a Traffic Management Center, and that maintains the eyes and ears on the highway system, looking out and managing all the cameras and sensors and everything that we manage to keep eyes on the road. So that's a general brief overview of the department. I have a few just other elements of the department that I just wanted to point out. The next slide, I just talk a little bit about the highway fund, and I believe you heard from Steve Lavoie a little bit more about the highway fund as well too. But there is kind of a misnomer that we'd like to point out. The highway fund comes from the state road toll, that's the gas tax, as well as the registration fees. And but even though it has highway in its name, the highway fund is not the DOT, and the DOT is not the highway fund. Department of Safety collects all the revenues for the highway fund, and it's the unrestricted revenue fund that comes from those resources. But it's the legislature that appropriates the funds, and we are not the only drawer of highway funds. In fact, if you look at the stats at the bottom in 2024, while it is our primary source of revenue for our operating budget, in 2024, only about 57% of the highway fund was appropriated to DOT. That means 40% or more, went to other agencies as well as to local municipalities. But we do, like I said, the highway fund is the primary source of funding for our operations budget and to keep us running. The next slide just gives a quick overview of the Turnpike system, which is an enterprise system. So there are about 89 miles of interstate freeway facilities that are tolled, that comprise the Turnpike system. So it's an enterprise system, meaning that the revenue that's collected from those toll plazas, like in Hooksett, like in Bedford, like in Hampton, that revenue that comes from those tolls stays within the Turnpike system and goes to just maintain those 89 miles of roadway. So we can't take and utilize Turnpike funds on other areas or other roadways in the state. So it's a self-contained, self-managed system, self-funded by the tolls on those facilities. So there's just some facts and figures about the Turnpike system there. But in FY24, for order of magnitude, they collected about $149 million of total revenue out of 118 million toll transactions along the Turnpike system. So in the graphic there just highlights, the toll system, probably in this area, the primary route north-south. 93 between exit 14 and Concord down to the 293 split is part of the Effie Everett Turnpike. That's part of the toll system. And then the remaining Effie Everett Turnpike goes down 293 and down the Effie Everett Turnpike to the state line in between Nashua and Massachusetts. And on the seacoast, I-95 from Seabrook to Portsmouth is a tolled facility as part of the turnpike system, as well as the Spalding Turnpike from Portsmouth up to Milton. So very briefly, the next slide, I just discussed some of the issues and challenges that the department is facing. Inflation, certainly no secret, but inflation is certainly one of the key issues we're dealing with. Everything is costing more, and we have essentially level and flat budgets. It's affecting construction work. We've seen in the last year and a half substantial escalation in construction costs. We are keeping up. The additional federal funding that we got with the federal transportation bill represented about 25 to 28% increase in federal funds. A lot of that has been absorbed by inflation. So we have a very sustainable program, but we aren't doing a whole lot more because of inflation. And that's affecting also operations. Everything is costing more. The salt that we use, the equipment that we buy, and things like that. I already talked a little bit about the workforce vacancies. Again, we're running about a 24% vacancy rate. We have never really recovered from COVID. So for the last 2 to 3 years, we have been dealing and managing with things with that vacancy rate. It fluctuates a little up and down, but it seems to have kind of been level at around that rate. And we have difficulty attracting and retaining employees despite a very concerted effort on our part to rebuild the workforce. And some of the implications of that are in productivity. So we have performance targets. We have a lot of work programs and things that we would achieve, that we would like to achieve, and we are falling short on our targets. We are constantly prioritizing resources to address the critical needs. And one of the things I like to say, that the way I summarize it in our budget presentation, is that we are getting done what we have to get done, but we aren't getting done everything that we should be because of our vacancy rates. And part of the impact is going to be some future impacts. It's reducing preventative maintenance. So we aren't getting out there and maintaining the mowing and the ditching and everything like that we should be, as we prioritize resources to other critical life safety areas. When you look at issues and challenges, the next slide is a graph comparing our historic workforce staffing to vehicle miles traveled, which is a measure of the use of our transportation system. So you can see that going back 20 years or so, we were resourced, we were staffed at a higher level. We have continued to reduce workforce. We've continued to try to do more with less, and at the same time, the use of our system, the vehicle mile travels, have been increasing. So I like to call this graphic our efficiency graphic, because I do think it indicates that the Department of Transportation is efficient. We continue to do more with less. We have not added positions in the last 10 years, and we've been relatively flat and stable, and we've found ways to do things, whether it be with hired help or consultant help or other ways, to maintain a stable and level workforce. Longer term challenges, do become, funding issues. There is insufficient highway fund revenues to fund current levels of service. We do not match our federal funds like other states do. We put very little state funds into matching our federal program. as a result, our federal funds do not go as far. But that's a decision that we have made with limited state dollars. But there are very little state funds that go into our transportation program. And, it is, as you look ahead in forecasting, we do see, declining roll toll revenues as fuel efficiency increases in vehicles, electric vehicles come online. So the sustainability of the highway fund, continues to be a question in the long term. In the long term, and over the past 10 or 15 years, every biennium, the highway fund has, been balanced. Our budgets have been balanced through a series of one-time fixes, whether it's general fund infusion into the highway fund or other registration fees, surcharges, or other things that have been done on these one-time budget fixes. So in the long run, I guess it's just that questionable sustainability of overall highway funding is a question in our minds. So the next slide, these are the types of things that the Transportation Committee that you all typically interact with the department on, the types of bills. Usually it's bills dealing with speed limits or line striping or seasonal postings, pedestrian traffic signals, OHRVs, drones, or other aeronautic uses. Those are some of the types of bills in the past that we have come before this committee to answer questions and bills on. And I'm not sure, I haven't looked ahead at what the bills are before the committee, but I'm sure we'll be back before you for some questions at some point. The last 2 points I wanted to make, little less pertinent to the Transportation Committee than it is to say House Public Works, but every 2 years we update the 10-year plan. So that is coming up beginning this summer. We'll start public hearings with the Executive Council, make a recommendation to the governor by next December, and ultimately next section, the revised or updated 10-year plan will become a piece of legislation coming before the legislature. But that work begins this summer to form and develop the plan. And part of that plan will be, as I said, with some of the flat or level financial resources, what choices we need to make as a state of where we want to invest those funding, what projects we're going to do. But I can tell you, and you probably all know from your constituents, there are many more needs than there are resources. So those choices become very pertinent. And lastly, I just want to put in a plug for the New Hampshire Transportation Council. Chairman Walsh sits on the Transportation Council, so he's well aware of it. But there is a Transportation Council that was established by legislature to partner with the DOT. It's made up of a number of other state agencies, as well as representatives from the House and Senate and the public, and they're charged with studying or investigating, evaluating new transportation technologies and modes to improve transportation. So I know a number of times, particularly in this committee, things have come before the committee that may warrant more evaluation, more study. And I think the Transportation Council can be a resource to the legislature, a resource to to this committee in researching or evaluating any newer technologies or things that come along that could affect your work. So I just want to make you aware of that, so you're aware. And that's all I had from an overview of the Department of Transportation, and certainly willing to entertain whatever questions the committee has.
Thank you so much. Any questions from the committee? Representative Patero.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for coming, taking my question.
Certainly.
Concerning the highway fund, talked about declining revenues. In one of the previous presentations this morning, there was an allusion to an electrical vehicle surcharge. Could you describe what that is?
Yeah, I think I'm speaking a little bit off the cuff, but I know, and Dave, if you come in, or I know, I'll have Dave come up, but if it was last year, the legislature did put in a surcharge for EV purchases. I think it was $50 or $100. I don't know if you remember the details. Yeah.
It's $100 for electric vehicles and $50 for hybrid electric vehicles.
So, and I believe that generates somewhere in the order of about $2 million. I know Department of Safety collects the revenue, but I seem to recall about that amount that it has generated to date.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you.
Sure.
Representative Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Your efficiency graph that you shared with us, I note that you're using the number of positions as your staffing, not the number of actual staff. And with the drop in headcount, you say you're 24% down right now. Has that 24% been consistent, or is this sort of hiding the fact that you have way fewer people than we did 10 or 15 years ago, that it's actually a more dramatic change than what we're seeing in this chart?
That's a good observation. I think the latter. I think it is a little more dramatic than this graphic may imply, because we have been dealing with a fairly consistent vacancy rate that we just haven't been able to reduce. It usually runs between 20 and 24%. It's a little bit masking because it's not consistent. There are some areas, there are some bureaus that are fully staffed. There are some areas where we have even more inordinate vacancies. I look at our engineering positions in project development, which is running around 35 to 40%. That's part of an issue with the state and what the state's able to pay, but it's also an industry-wide kind of shortage of engineers coming out of school as well too. So I think yes, from our efficiency chart, it does mask a little bit that we are have even less people than what we show on that chart, continuing to try to get everything done.
Thank you.
Representative Plamondon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On slide 6, I noticed that we show over $500,000 in revenue from aviation, but nothing. I don't see anything for rail or public transit. Do we recoup any? Do you know any revenues coming in from rail or public transit?
On rail, we do get, it's about $1 million a year of revenue as part of the operating agreements for operators and the rail lines running on state lines. Part of that is plowed back into maintenance of those lines, working with the operators of those lines. So relatively meager rail revenue that comes from that, but it is something. Public transit, we do not get any revenue for that. BX, the Boston Express line that we run, we subsidize that. There is fare box revenue, but the fare box doesn't cover the operating costs, and that's been a slow recovery since COVID. Andre wanted me to make sure I mentioned the P3. We just recently had a public-private partnership with C&J Trailways to run and operate the Portsmouth and Dover park and ride transportation facilities. So that is that will be a source of revenue. We have a base rent, and then there is some revenue sharing on top of that. So that is a I'm hopeful that'll be a very successful project, because it's turned what had kind of been a maintenance drain, a negative cost for us, into a positive. So
Thank you. May I have a follow-up, Mr. Chair?
Quick follow-up.
Yes, I understand that the toll plazas would be under your jurisdiction, With the new plazas and cars just driving through, can you tell me, are we seeing a loss in revenues? Are we, of vehicles that are excessively going, over the 65 miles that's required? Is there any loss of revenue there?
No, there's no loss of revenue, and we make up, the fee structure for, violations and things like that is purposely looked at and reviewed to, make up and cover for those costs of collections. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're
Thank you,
welcome.
Mr. Chair.
Okay, one more final question, Representative Hill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for your presentation. I've never got so much negative comments on social media this weekend from the DOT. I don't even know how to describe it, but a weather forecast that seemingly I was getting comments that people were asking if it was hacked.
Yeah.
But it shows a guy with a head coming out of the toilet driving the car.
Mhm.
Is this some kind of attempt to get closer to millennials or something like that?
Yeah, that was it. I can send you an article. There was a good article in the where did I see it in the paper that did compare. So, part of it was marketing, part of it was to have a socially engaging message, lean into some of the current trends and try to get that feedback. And from a marketing perspective, well, it's not something we're going to do all the time. The reaction to it, the number of views, the number of reposts were very successful. Were very high. So while it was a lot of feedback around the way the message was conveyed, at least there were a lot more eyes that were seeing the message to watch for weather and drive slow. It's interesting. We did a very conventional social media post the day before, intentionally to do a comparison with that, with that more socially trended post the next day, and the comparison in terms of views and stuff were night and day. So,
So we'll see more.
well, yeah, we want to try to reach as many people as we can. I won't say it will be all that way, but we try to have a broad spectrum of messaging to engage as many folks as we can.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Commissioner, for coming. Since your team was in here, could you just introduce them to us so we know
Sure.
who they are? Because some of them did come up and answer a question.
Yep. So Dave Rodriguez was the Assistant Commissioner and Chief Engineer. Andre Briere, and as I pointed out in the structure, Dave kind of oversees all of the operations and project development. Andre is the Deputy Commissioner. He oversees all of the non-highway and bridge transportation assets, aeronautics, rail, and transit, as well as policy and administration. With me is Steve Labonte, who is our legislative liaison. He's going to be kind of the point person for interacting with the committee, and he monitors and tracks all of the bills and things that we're following and things like that. And Lee Baronis is the administrator of the Bureau of Traffic, who do all of the signing, striping, signals, and he may be a familiar face because a number of the bills that tend to come before transportation are pertinent to his activities. So,
Excellent. Thank you so much.
thank you for having us. I appreciate it. And hopefully you found it worthwhile.
Okay, at this point, I'd like to call up Mr. Dan Bennett, who's a nice little friend of the committee, to talk a little bit about who he is and what he does and why we probably see him a lot here in transportation. Welcome, Mr. Bennett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Thanks for the opportunity to speak in front of what is my favorite committee in the House. And you will see me often. My name is Dan Bennett. I'm the president of the New Hampshire Auto Dealers Association. I've been with the association a little over 20 years. We are a trade group for the motor vehicle industry. So car, truck, snowmobile, motorcycle, ATV, construction, farm equipment, collision repair, part stores. Pretty much if it's got an engine or tracks or wheels, we'll take it. And we represent both franchised and independent dealers. So the big, monstrous garage mahals, franchise dealerships, to small little string of light lots. So in about 540 businesses in communities and corners all over the state. I'm also gonna, since you asked, I'll introduce a little bit of our legislative and government relations team that helps with us. You'll see in the back, retired State Police Lieutenant Jay O'Leary. Although he won't be directly lobbying with you, he will be assisting us with our government relations and compliance work. We also have the team from Dennehy and Boulay, Jackson Boulay's with us as well. For the Auto Dealers Association, as many of you know, cornerstone issues for us are safe roads, consumer protection, and then making sure that our businesses have an efficient regulatory environment to work with. We work very closely with, we appreciate, and we're great partners with some of the folks you heard this morning, specifically DMV and Safety, State Police Troop G. I spent a lot of time with those folks. Just a little bit about the association. In addition to our government relations role, we're a self-funded workers' comp trust. So an insurance company for our businesses. Since our inception in 1990, we've rebated back to those small businesses that put in over $100 million. It helps keep their costs low. We broker health insurance for our members, again, to help keep costs low. And then we have an education foundation. We scholarship young auto technicians about $85,000 a year. We want a homegrown workforce. So we're heavily invested in the 20 high schools that have automotive programs, as well as the 5 community colleges that have both independent programs and also programs associated with the manufacturers, including National Community College, which has a body shop program, collision repair, important aspect of the industry. Importantly, what I want to mention to you all, we also run, and this may help with some of your constituents if there's a concern, we run an AutoCap program, which is a consumer complaint program. So folks can call in, and then we try and bridge the gap with what is usually a communication difference. The customer just didn't know what Tires for Life really meant, or the message wasn't making it to the right decision maker in the sales office or the F&I office. So we can help bridge that communication so it doesn't escalate, so the consumer's happy and made whole. So I'm gonna give some handouts for the whole committee that'll have my contact information on it, which I hope you use this as a resource. If you have a question about the industry and the business, let us help you. But also, again, as I mentioned, if you have a constituent concern that we can assist with, please let us know. Other than that, just wanted to say thank you very much for the opportunity, and we look forward to working with you this session.
Thank you much, Dan. Any questions for Dan? Not seeing any. Thank you, sir.
Thanks.
Next person I'd like to call up is Mr. Tom Praisall. You will see Tom quite a bit in committee. Tom, welcome back to transportation.
Great. Thank you very much, Vice Chairman. So everyone knows my name is Tom Praisall from Demers, Praisall and Thomas. We're a lobbying firm here in Concord, and we have about 40 clients, many of which will come before this committee. Just to name a few, we represent the New Hampshire Driver Education Teachers Association. We represent Enterprise Rent-A-Car, along with several clients who have trucking issues, including FedEx and Walmart and the Retail Association. We also represent the New Hampshire Police Association and New Hampshire Troopers Association, who may be before you with some other issues. With that, I'm always in the halls. If you have any questions, please feel free to grab me. And while I don't usually make promises, I promise I will always do my best to not be the last one standing between you and lunch. So with that, I will stand up.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. One more person that would like to introduce themselves, who's a regular in transportation, Mr. Bob Scully.
Thank you,
Hampshire
Mr.
Motor
Chairman.
Transport.
Members of the committee, my name is Bob Scully. I've appeared in front of this committee for over 37 years. I almost got the numbers backwards. I represent large commercial motor vehicles, big trucks. New Hampshire Motor Transport Association, we have over 300 members, all the way from UPS, FedEx, down to single owner operators. So our issues are safety, no taxes if we can help them. We pay enough, we feel. We just like to keep that in check. And over 95% of everything that comes in this state comes by truck. So no matter what you have for clothes, where you go to eat, materials you buy for your house, it all comes in this state by truck. So I'm often here in front of this committee. I know it's the end of the long morning for you, so I thank you. I'll be in the hallways if you need me, and I will appear in front of you on legislation of interest to us, and I thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you very much. Anybody else who would like to introduce? I think everybody has that wants to. Okay, well, that's the end of our presentations. And again, I said I do have a normal checklist of things that we can go over that are more committee specific. 15 minutes, half an hour. I'll ask your opinion. What do you want to do? Do you want to just go right through? Or do you want to stop for lunch? Or how about a 15-minute break? Hour through? I thought you were going to give us 10 minutes, but okay, I tell you what, let's do 10 minutes. That's not really a break, so. guess I still need to be public for this. I hope everybody thought that the presentations this morning were valuable. We have a lot of information. We do have the pleasure of dealing with a lot of good people, so we've got that going for us. As you can see, I didn't keep today very structured. I figured if I did, we'd be here till 2:30, 3 o'clock with all the people we heard from. So doing it like this, we actually got a lot of info. The only thing I got left for today, just for committee sake, I do have a list of things we can run through in terms of how this committee operates, or most committees operate. Give me 1 second here. I'll go through these, I'll read them, and share my opinion if I have one, or if we have any questions or your opinion, it'll let me know. Start time and notices of absence. So obviously, check the calendar every week for the start times of our hearings or executive sessions. As you'll notice, with the rule change from last week, if you see a disclaimer in the calendar, we do have the ability to fill in any downtime by executing bills that we've either heard that day or previously. I think just for the benefit of the new people, I think most of you that are veterans know I usually schedule everything best as possible, including the exec sessions. And I do try to, I think I've got a pretty good success record on estimating how much time for the hearings too. Not all the time, but it's not an easy thing to do. A recommendation for everybody on the committee, single email account used for legislative business. I was hesitant at first, but I've since done it. I would strongly recommend using the legislative address for whatever you do here, and keep your personal one separate. Believe it or not, it could be requested of you one of these days. You never know. So keep everything separate. And again, don't hesitate to stop me as I run through these. Dress and decorum. Another rule that failed, but we all do our best to look professional. I am actually underdressed today, so if you see me coming in like this with no tie and jeans, it's probably because I spent a couple hours on my job before I get here. And this is pretty good multi-purpose clothing, but it's still an effort. But we should be dressing as professionals. There's no doubt about it. Today we just had department heads. I shouldn't say just, but a lot of times we'll have members of the public too. And that's what we're here to do. There are some times we won't be in this room. I don't think we'll have the opportunity this year, but we have in the past had public hearings in the Hall of Reps with 250, 300 people. I mean, so it can happen. Food, coffee, and lunch breaks. All right, and this is where I do chime in a little bit. Water's okay. And as you can see, even if it's something other than water, I ask you that you keep it down below the table. These benches, actually, the tables do have these little convenient shelves underneath. I just think, and again, not today, this is informal today, but when we have hearings going on or exec sessions, I try to keep drinks and stuff off the table. I think it looks a lot better. Food, obviously, we're not eating food unless we do a special lunch for the committee. But obviously, again, back to that professional appearance. Use of electronic devices. This has been a matter of contention for years. Some in the past would say no to anything, no laptops, no phones. I have seen that decision come down from the Speaker's office in the past. There is no such rule now. It's up to us. I guess I'll say, let's go for it. You can use them. They are a good resource. But again, keep in mind, when people are speaking to us, it doesn't always look good if we have I prefer not to see laptops, tablets, or phones. I get it. And if you're going to use your laptop, be sparing about it. We are trying to listen to the people that are here. So we'll leave it at that. And if we see anything happening, I'll make mention of it. But use of electronic devices we just covered. For the committee, for our new folks in the office, we do have some cabinets, some filing drawers. They're good size. I believe, actually, let me back up. I've been remiss. Our committee researcher is Mr. Brad Graylin, and I apologize, Brad. And in the office out this door to the right, in office 201A, Millennial, not a Gen Z, is our committee assistant, Karen Davis. Yeah, she can come in and introduce herself, sure. And I can ask her a question at the same time. Or maybe you know, are all the names been updated on the filing cabinets?
Yes.
We'll take a look afterwards for everybody, just to make sure you've got your own drawer allotted to you. You've already got yours?
I've checked that.
Okay, so now I'm assuming that's, these people are right on top of it. I will be assigning a member for security notifications. Unfortunately, he just left. So hopefully we're good for the day. And fire alarm exit. In our room, I'll make sure everybody can see it posted clearly, what happens, how to get out of here if there's an emergency. Okay, so the committee, our partisan balance is 9 Republicans and 7 Democrats. This is a big switch for transportation. I've been here since 2013 or 2012 election, and it was always a 20-member committee. So with the development of a second education committee, and a good number of people that didn't want any committee, that's why the decision was to reduce some of the numbers where they could. I don't know, might make our life easier, might not. I guess we'll see how it goes. But that is the split, 9-7. Everybody good with the seat I gave you today? This was just a rough one. I try to mix everybody up. No objections? Then I guess we'll leave the seating as it is. Typical bill topics. Well, as you get into this, you'll probably see that the majority of our bills are in what's called Title 20, motor vehicle laws. I won't go too far into that right now. You'll see. You're going to get one book of statutes that contains Title 20. I'd say 99% of the bills that we, 95% of the bills we cover are within Title 20, occasionally with references elsewhere. Second, committee work. We will be getting, well, we usually do. Again, we haven't got all our bills yet, probably not even close. Second, bills that will require us to act, go to the floor, and then go to a second committee. Usually it's either finance if it's got a fiscal note, possibly criminal justice, or judiciary if it changes penalties substantially. So you may see some of those types of bills. We'll deal with those first. As soon as I get all the bills, I'll let everybody know which ones are considered early. Subcommittees, we'll deal with that as we go. We can and do have the ability, if we have bills in particular that we kind of like the idea, but know it needs work, we can at our exec sessions or the exec session would be the appropriate place. Request subcommittees, and we can do groups of usually not a number, 3, 5 people, if they want to, if there's a desire to study a bill and work on it, to bring it back to this committee, the full committee, to vote on it before it goes to the floor. And I'm just going through these quick. Any questions? Don't worry, there's more. There'll be plenty of opportunity. Calendar notices, I think I've already mentioned. Our Bible weekly. I generally do not reach out to the committee personally via email. I know we're allowed for notifications and such without any violations to 91A, but I still think it's simpler. This is what I use to reach out to you. I think it works better. It's more efficient. Bill files do not leave the building. Well, that would be more for me, because obviously the bills you've been issued can leave the building. They're yours. By the way, this is only 15 of them. Right now we have 24 that have already been issued. I just heard this morning there are still, I think he said better than 200 that have not even been assigned yet. Then I also heard, and they're pretty good at usually figuring out where they go based on Title 20. I wouldn't be surprised if, and I agree with DMV, that we probably get 45, which is not the most we've had. We had 54 last year, I think. I mean, I was very happy with the 24. I don't know about the rest of you, but we'll see what happens. And in terms of scheduling, I'll bring this up now while we're talking about the bills. I generally like to have them all so that when I do my scheduling, I can group them together by theme so that, you know, a lot of the people that testify are the same ones. And we're into it, you know, you've seen it before. We have multiple bills that touch on the same thing. Without having all of them, I'm hesitant on scheduling anything for next week. But I may do that. And on that note, Tuesday is going to be the day we meet. It's always been. So for your planning purposes, Tuesday is our day. Committee, well, the ranking member and both the vice chair, we know about the committee replacement policy. If you can't make it to a committee day, basically elect executive sessions, because there's really no need to replace yourself for a day just that has public hearings. You do need to let the respective offices know whether it's Democrat or Republican the day before they close. Otherwise, they cannot assign any replacements. All right, let's touch on public hearings for a minute. Excuse me, find my drink. I have seen in the past, public hearings. We had a member in the past, I won't mention any names, who thought that the public hearings we had were modeled on investigatory panels or meetings, commissions of the United States Senate, and the way they grilled people sitting at that table. That's not what we do here. We're here to listen to what they have to offer and ask questions of them of what's relative to the bill. We don't get into debates with the public. There's a little levity, but if it's a department head, but for the most part, it's just a sharing of information. They tell us, and we can ask them if they're willing to take questions. But no speeches during public hearings. When you're asking questions, if you've been called to ask a question, no time for speeches there. That literally is asking through the chair to a question of who's ever at that table. You'll see I'm fair with giving questions, probably fairer than most. But if I'm looking at the clock and if I start saying no to more questions, it's only because I'm looking ahead, and if we don't stop, we're going to get in trouble. The clock does run everything eventually. But you'll catch it. For those of you that are new, have not been through this, speeches. You have a little more opportunity for that when we're debating the bill in the committee, and that's the executive session. Whole different rules in executive session. You're still going to go through the chair, but that's your opportunity for debate, opportunity for speeches. And again, I mentioned it, questions go through the chair. And if you need a second question, you should, ask for a second question. And basically everything goes through me or the vice chair when he's sitting here. When the sponsor is a member of the committee, all right, so if you have a bill, and I think you do, that'll be coming here.
I do, sir.
Okay, so what happens if you, I'll do the sponsor first. If you are a sponsor of a bill and you go up and you're on this committee, you'll go up to that table, introduce the bill like everybody else does, but that's your bite at the apple. And so you won't be returning to your seat unless it's a full house. I might make an exception to let you back to your seat, but that's only because it's a full house. Generally, if I introduce one of my bills, I stay out in the gallery because that's the last time I get to speak on it. And that applies to everybody. If it's a full house, I'll let you come back over here, but if you come and sit down, it's not to ask questions, it's not to offer any more testimony. That's just how it works. Co-sponsors are different. If you're a co-sponsor on a bill and you don't go to that table, it's okay if you ask questions of the witnesses that are there. If there's not pretty clear, everybody clear on that, it's pretty much common sense. And again, a lot of these things I'm going through because this is my outline. As we get into it, you see how it all works. It all makes sense. Yeah, okay, I already mentioned this. Action on the bill, same day as a hearing, Rule 44B. We do have the ability to do that now. I promise I will not be abusing it. But if it's bills that we think we can just dispose of with no fanfare and a little debate, just to get them out of, if we're in agreement, basically, it might come in handy. Again, I am of the thought and process of longer days, just fewer. I hope everybody can go along with that because everybody's time is important. So that could come in very handy. Conflict of interest and recusal. Committee Procedure Rules 100 through 111.
Sorry.
We passed you've all filled out your financial disclosure forms. You also have a new one to fill out before Friday. I don't know if all of you have done it. Get on the portal or get into the portal. The one you filled out at the very beginning is not the last one. Now we have a new one. And it's a little more. What's that? Charlie especially. There's no way I'm going to go into it at this depth now. I would suggest reading everything that's there. There are going to be more times that recusal may be something you need to do depending on the new law. So instead of we could talk about this for hours. I will just make mention that you need to look into this. And we'll see how it goes. This is a new law. We're going to see how it rolls out. But with conflicts of interest and recusal in this new bill, it's a possibility that some may have to do it more often than they thought in the past. And that could be up for debate too, I guess, with the administration, but we'll see how it goes. I just want to make you aware that we did make a law change last year. Executive sessions. No public input without the chair's consent, meaning when we go into executive session, it's our time. The only time somebody in the gallery will chime in is if I allow them because we have a question, and that's more than fine. But it's not a time for more public input or public hearings. It's specifically for information during that executive session process. Anybody have any questions on the amendments? Because, well, I'll go through it. If you want to amend the bill, you need to go to OLS. The only amendments we will take here are by committee members, or can take here by committee members, prepared by OLS. Once you've seen the amendment, then you request that gets sent up to committee services. Committee services will make the appropriate amount of copies for the committee and bring them down to us. So that's basically the process. I don't think I'm missing anything, am I?
I would specifically say that you should be aware, you or the vice chair should be aware of any amendments.
It's helpful. Now, any amendments, if you heard that, any amendments, well, the chair does have the ability to recognize them or not. I don't normally have an issue with that, but I guess, like everything else, I try to keep open communication with the ranking member. It's helpful for everybody if we all do the same. If you get an amendment coming on a bill, the more people that know about it, the better off. Nobody likes surprises, I guess, in other words. So anyway, no public input without chair's consent. Amendments prepared by OLS. If you have any other questions or any hesitation on how to draft an amendment or get one drafted, I should say, please reach out. We'll do everything we can to help you. Motions. We have, well, 3 motions. Inexpedient to legislate is if you don't want the bill to move forward. Ought to pass if you do. We'll get into the parliament. The first executive session will be an eye-opener for those who have never done it, if none of our new members have never done it. On some of the other motions, we can do reconsideration. We can go through the whole gamut of everything we would do on the House floor for the most part, with the exception of tabling. We can't table a bill here, can we? No. We also have
One of the rules.
right. We almost were able to table them. We do have another couple of options with bills in the first year. We can send them to what's called interim study if we truly believe retained on the first year. And we do, that is exactly what it means. It won't go to the floor. There'll be no committee report on it. We will keep the bill and work on it until the following year of the biennium. And then we'll have to dispose of it. And then the second year, interim study. Yeah, technically it is what it is. It's also called death with dignity. But you'll see how this works when we get to that stage. That's next year's fun. We can adopt amendments in committee by a voice vote, but all votes for the committee recommendation will be done by roll call. After we vote on a bill, we do have to create a committee report. So I tend to, whoever makes the motion, ask the person to come up with a committee report. If it's not a unanimous bill, then obviously that's the opportunity for the minority to offer their minority report. And both of those reports have to be, I want them that day. They do get proofread by several people, first myself, then they go through committee services. Ultimately, they get looked at again by the speaker and the clerk. Once again, it's basically just a reporting and an explanation to the full House of what we did and why we did it. When I'm just going through this, when we get to that point, I will gladly work with anybody who's never done one, just to make it easier. And then you'll also start seeing them in the calendar. When you start seeing how some of these other ones look, that'll give you a gauge on what they should look like. But they're not that bad. Simple is better. I did mention we have Brad as our researcher and Karen is our assistant. They are here to help us, but they also help a bunch of other committees as well. If you need or would request that they give you a hand on something that's relative to this committee only, that request still needs to come through me. Otherwise, if 16 people from 5 different committees were going after them all at once, they would be overwhelmed. So it's just a matter of keeping some order and keeping some sanity through the process. And they do our committee work only. I think I mentioned that. We're almost done, folks. Member resources. We do have administrative support on the 4th floor. I strongly recommend to anybody that's new, never hesitate going up to the 4th floor and asking questions. That's the one thing that makes this whole place work is the staff that we have up there. We do have statutes here. On top of the filing cabinet in the back room, you'll also see, I believe those are up to date, probably the last 15 years of updates to Title 20, our related book. Obviously, there are complete statutes, because I don't think these have been maintained that well up on the 4th floor. Computer level in our old smoking room. Yes, we did have one up until not too long ago. What's that? On the 4th floor of the LOB, smoking room, yes. I mean, computer room. I do have the password for the internet access if you need it. It should be, pretty much everybody's got it, but I do have it if you need it. The rest of the things I have here are just phone numbers for the clerk, for Richard Lambert, Ethics Committee Executive Director, and for Ann Fitzgerald, who is lead staff at House Committee Services. That is all I've got as just a rough description of how this all works. Representative Gorski, do you have anything?
Yeah, I think one of the things that makes this committee great is the collegiality, that we may have differences of opinion, but this is a really great committee that, we like to kind of keep that culture. So I think the key thing here is just we treat each other with respect. And, there could be differences of opinion, but I think this is what makes this committee one of the best ones, I believe. We can just kind of keep that. That'll be fantastic.
Anybody else? Representative St. Clair.
Just a quick question. Is there anything going on with the driver's licenses being not used for other information, with that strip on the back? And we talked about that. We had a bill last year on that. Do you know of anything coming down the pike on that this year? So this is where you go into a bar or something and they scan it.
I heard there's another, well, yeah, I tried to introduce a bill last year regarding that. Another person had, so they didn't let me introduce mine. I did see one. I don't know if it gets signed off on, but in the early LSR stage, I saw that there was a bill to prohibit the scanning of alcohol and tobacco products, which is the only bill I've seen so far, which is actually all I wanted out of mine. But the one that got let in instead of mine went quite a ways away. I don't know if you remember that. I met every lobbyist in this building, people I haven't seen in years, over that one bill. That was brutal. But that's the only one I know of, and I haven't got it yet. Another interesting one too, speaking of bills, I got a conversation with somebody with a full-blown repeal of the inspection program again. I haven't seen it. I don't know if something happened. I don't know if he missed a deadline. It could be in the 200, but then again, I looked in all the LSRs too. I didn't see it. So it's a possibility that I did see it, but that doesn't mean it made it. With all the deadlines and sign-offs and everything, something could have happened technically. Caucuses. Again, these are partisan, so basically how it works, I'm the neutral, as the chair, the neutral person in the room. The ranking member will manage the caucuses for the Democrats, and the vice chairman organizes caucuses for the Republicans. Usually we'll take this room for our caucuses, and we do share from time to time, and then the Democrats can take the office. We've always been pretty flexible. I don't know how many rooms are going to be available, so if you think there's, if you don't want the office, if you think it's too small, I'll have to check in with Karen to see if we need to schedule rooms for caucuses, but we haven't had to up until this point. Usually just to sneak in an empty room for 15, 20 minutes, but those are the two people responsible for them. When you do them is up to you. In terms of, we'll talk later on further information on the caucuses. What am I forgetting? Go ahead.
You mentioned executive sessions earlier. Are those still televised public record, or are those private? Okay.
They are public. Well, they're televised. Everything we do is streamed now. But if the cameras go out, we don't stop. And that's why the public record still is officially the clerk's notes. That's another reason I didn't do any hearings today, because I knew she was out of state. I usually try to fill the afternoon up on organization days with hearings, but with a few people missing and not having all the bills, that's why I figured we'd have a nice, easy day. Anybody else? Well, I think you've heard me rant long enough. For those of you that don't know me, I try to keep it light here. I do watch the clock pretty good, but in terms of how we interact, we need to laugh occasionally. So that's been the tradition here, and hopefully we can keep it up. So I will ponder. Actually, we could be getting bills issued to us right now. I don't know. And I would just say watch the calendar about any public hearings for next Tuesday. If I want to give you an odds, 70% chance we'll be doing some hearings on Tuesday. And I know it's not a good way to do this, but I really want to see the whole pile.
I have a quick question.
Yep, go ahead.
So in my committee, we end up with a bunch of bills that are perennials. We see them frequently. So one of the things I'm asking our researcher to do is to provide us the last time that it happened, a copy of the file. I don't know if I recall from any of the bills in here whether there were, I just want to see what what previous testimony occurred and what happened with the bill. So we're not doing kind of what you're just saying, whatever happened with that bill that had the, I don't know if I saw ones that are back from last term, but I think it's helpful for, especially those that aren't here now, or that weren't there then, to catch up somewhat.
I'll look at that specifically. It's a good idea. I thought I saw one that was a return. Oh, yeah. Well, one that is a return from last year is eliminating the first year for inspections. That's a repeat. I don't think the text has changed at all. So we can get that information. If the full-blown repeal of the program gets found, or if it actually did get filed, I can do the same thing with that. However, I was told that this one was going to be doing a pretty deep dive into all the statutes, including the references on that repeal. That one could be a beauty. So, if anybody else notices bills that, well, we don't have window tint bills this year, so that takes care of that perennial. I haven't seen a out-of-state plates on out-of-state trailers getting license plates yet, so that could be a perennial. But
Are there driver's licenses on that?
driver's license, I haven't seen the 15 we've got. I'll flip through them later.
There's a couple driver's licenses.
Oh, that's right. That's another one. Yes. EVs, I haven't looked at the language yet, but that probably didn't change.
It's the same one, I think.
Yeah.
No, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead, Brad. Oh, that's right. Another one. Rolling coal. Ah. What do they call that? Prius repellent? Yeah. Yeah, so we do have some fun. Yeah, there are more than I thought that are coming back. So,
But rolling coal is actually the title of this stuff, isn't it?
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. You did the majority report on that. That's right. Well, that's all I've got. Again,
The blue envelope is in there too, so I don't know if that would have been an ideal one to table under this. new program.
if we had gotten it, yeah,
I
yeah.
don't know what you do now. You just have to still have to hold a hearing.
I still have to have a hearing, and we still have
Or
to,
they could withdraw it now.
or they could withdraw it. I know, is Partial on that?
He is, but
He's not,
the lead.
no, Faulkner, I think, the blue envelope bill. I think
He's like the third or fourth person that signed up on it.
yeah, because
Newell.
we brought this to the DMV.
Newell's the
summer,
lead
and,
sponsor.
He said, I can do this without a
Newell
bill.
is the first listed. It's in our packet
Something
here.
to look into if you can.
Newell is the prime.
Right. Well, all right. Anything else for the good of the cause? Seeing none, thanks very much, and watch the calendar for my decision on next Tuesday.